Pop culture pastor.
I mean, we could sit here and debate on the merits of allowing people democracy. Can we handle it? That's the question. And
we cannot.
I think some people would say, maybe you right now, some people would say, clearly we cannot. You don't give us choice because we'll just blow it.
I'll go back to free will in the garden. Clearly, see, we can't be trusted. And as we go on through the show, we'll learn like the full detriment of the downfall of society and humanity.
Wow. Just jump off that cliff. I mean, my goodness. It's like we just reenacted the from Attack of the Clones, the scene in the meadow where Anakin, the meme where Anakin's like, I think, just one person in charge would be the way to go. And she's like, you're kidding, right? That's me right now. I'm like, you're kidding, right? Oh, you're not kidding.
No, we are not.
Oh, man. Welcome to Pop Culture Pastor, our podcast. We are two licensed ministers, Cody and my name's Dave, and we love pop culture.
We do.
And what Cody is already making reference to is the final of our tournament of tournaments. Our effort to put all these comic book movies together to finally determine what is the best comic book movie of all time by the votes of our listeners. And Cody is not pleased with the results.
So I wasn't pleased with the Marvel side of the bracket anyway, because if you ask me, the movie that made it out might be like the 5th or 6th best Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And I'm putting Ragnarok, Winter Soldier, the newest Spider-Man, and Infinity War in front of it. And it's not even close. Like, those are for sure in front of it, and I can make a case for a couple others being just as good.
Well, and I think we can also, like a state of the tournament, the way we set it up, it was the first time we did it. So I think if in the future, if we were to do this again, because obviously the Batman was not a part of this.
It was
We
not.
started it before it came out. So I think if we were going to do this in the future, I would scrap all the Marvel on one half of the bracket and then everything else on the other. And we would just go for a total seeding of the 64 best comic book movies.
According to Dave.
No, there was some scientific usage in there. It just wasn't my opinion. I was using several lists.
All the list.
Yeah. And I was trying to be as comprehensive as I could be. See, everyone's got to complain.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not seeing look, if it was up to me, Avengers Endgame probably wouldn't have been a 1 seed.
It would have even made it in the tournament.
Well, let's not get crazy. Anyways, we had 95 votes, which, frankly, come on. That's weak sauce.
Very weak.
Everyone needs to vote. We had 95 votes, 95 listener votes on what the best comic book movie of all time. It's March Madness is done. We're to the championship moment, just like the University of Kansas.
We are.
Rock, chalk, Jayhawk.
Go KU.
Anyways, we get this moment. Avengers Endgame and The Dark Knight. And the winning tally was 49-46. So it was very close. Very, very close with the eventual and newly crowned best comic book movie of all time by your votes, Avengers Endgame over The Dark Knight, 49-46.
I might get sick.
Yeah. Cody is ill. I mean, I guess I voted for The Dark Knight.
And you voted correctly.
I didn't feel great about it.
Oh, I felt like this is hands down a better movie, better cast, and Endgame had everyone and their mom in it. And I'm going to say just the handful of people that were in Dark Knight were better.
Why? Why are you going to say that?
Morgan Freeman, Heath Ledger, Gary Oldman, Christian Bale, Aaron Eckhart. Like the worst character in it's Maggie Gyllenhaal, or the worst actress in it is, and
Shocking Maggie Gyllenhaal slander.
yeah, no one was ready for that. But I'm saying like, and you have Cillian Murphy's even in it. Like
He's totally wasted in those movies.
you don't even see most of the Avengers until the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Okay, but here let's. I want to say this though. The story in The Dark Knight is a problem, and I think drags it down because the story it doesn't hold up to any sort of examination. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That it's just total chaos. And basically, this is my problem with Nolan a lot. Maybe ever since Memento, because I liked Memento and it made sense to me. I think he became a filmmaker that's just trying to put these trippy vignettes. Like he's trying to include these trippy moments, and the moments start to serve the plot, right? Or the plot starts to serve the moments instead of the moments serving the plot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I would also say each film within the Nolan verse, I feel, takes on the characteristics of the main villain. And so
I've never thought of that, but if that's what he's doing, then that would explain the chaotic nature of The Dark Knight.
Because the Joker is very chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if that's the case, then we'll have to do some homework on that to back up that claim.
Because if you notice, and I'll use Rises as an example, usually within the rest of the other two Batman movies, the fight scenes are happening lightning quick and Batman's kicking butt. It slows down because Bane is amongst the initiated. He's able to see it coming. It takes on his persona, the fight does. Mm-hmm. And so it's very villain focused.
Yeah. So the problem with Dark Knight, and I agree. So The Dark Knight Rises, I think, is actually a superiorly crafted story, right? So like take the end of The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger's Joker he has this assumption that the people are going to destroy each other to live, right? Mm-hmm. That their ambition to keep living is going to throw that over the edge, and then he's wrong, and it sort of devastates him, right, at the end. And the whole point of the end of the movie is like, see, you're wrong. You don't know people. The problem with that is the things that happen in the movie are so expertly crafted by someone who clearly is an expert in human behavior. Like so many of the things that happen in his plan are because of a certain specific reaction by somebody.
And I mean,
he would have had to predict it.
Even like the bank heist at the very beginning, there's several moments within that where like he just knows how each guy's going to react, and then he ends up with all the money at the end of it.
Right. Several points of his plan, the reason he's always ahead of the Batman, he's always a step ahead, is because he is correctly predicting behavior. And so to have him at the end speak, you're wrong. It's just kind of a weird ending to me. You're just kind of ignoring the previous part of the movie. I don't know.
Maybe he didn't account for the prisoner having a good moral character.
Yeah. And so like what I'm trying to say is the larger piece here is Nolan. The problem I have with Nolan, and I had this problem with Inception, is you're creating it's like he imagines these cool moments in film, and man,
so cool.
Can he craft them? Like, I'm not trying to take that away from him. Like, there's these unbelievable moments in Inception, but when you piece them all together, they don't always connect real well, in my opinion.
I will agree that Nolan does have that tendency, especially I feel Inception on, you can really see it. It's noticeable.
And disclaimer, like there's a lot of bad movies out there. That's not what I'm saying about Nolan. Clearly the dude, I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy watching a Nolan movie.
Dunkirk, really good.
Dunkirk was fabulous. So good. So I like Nolan. I like watching his movies, and it's a minor gripe in the grand scheme.
I will say, without the Dark Knight trilogy, I'm 99% certain you don't get the Marvel universe.
What's your explanation for that?
Because before then, like Blade had started to die off. Like Blade Trinity was.
Spider-Man was a mess.
Spider-Man was a mess. Like the Dark Knight solidifies we can have superhero movies. I think Marvel sees the success of the Dark Knight franchise and are like, what if we make a whole universe instead of just focusing in on one hero? We tell multiple stories at once, and then we have them join up and create this cinematic universe. So they are actually planning as the Dark Knight's happening.
It's interesting, though, because Batman is a solitary character when it works.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's when they try to put him around other heroes that it's garbage.
DC, they have a Batman problem.
Even within Batman itself. So people like the Tim Burton movies, but they started adding Robin and Batgirl, and by then it's trash. There's bat nipples and everything else, and who knows what, like everyone hates it.
George.
So, it wasn't Clooney's fault. Everyone blames Clooney. Poor guy. It was Joel Schumacher. I don't know who made the decision about the bat nipples.
It was Joel, because he based it off of Greek and Roman statues.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah, that the sculptures, that it shows the human physique all ripped and stuff, and that was his decision, that he wanted it to look like that.
Well, I mean, it does fit with the character. I mean, what instills fear more than nipples on their bat suit?
Those were the dark days.
What a disaster. All right, so Avengers Endgame wins. It wins the tournament of tournaments. It's the best comic book movie of all time, as voted on by you, the listeners.
I mean, we'll agree, disagree.
You're so kind. Let's get to the news. There's been a lot of post-Academy Awards news. Will Smith resigned from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences last Friday, which is interesting because I don't know what it means. This is from People. They say this is what it means to resign. He will no longer enjoy the benefits that members are afforded, including access to screeners for films in consideration and the ability to vote for potential nominees. However, his invitation to attend future Academy Awards and related events remains to be seen once the Academy Board reaches an external decision later. The Code of Conduct, which was majorly revised in 2017 in the wake of the Me Too movement, Harvey Weinstein, includes disciplinary measures that may include private reprimand, public reprimand, temporary or permanent loss of privileges to attend and participate in Academy events or activities, temporary or permanent loss of eligibility to receive or hold, or revocation of Academy Awards or honors. So there's still, there's still apparently on the table that he could lose his Academy Award, which, if we go back to our pod last week, the devil's still stealing.
/ come back for Harvey's.
Yeah, also right. Because if you take Will Smith for slapping Chris Rock, something that, half of the United States probably wanted to do at some point in the last 20 years. Not that Chris Rock is a bad person, but he's kind of obnoxious sometimes.
At times.
So if you're going to do that, then yeah, you better come for Harvey's or Roman Polanski's for that matter.
And some would say Woody Allen's.
They gave Roman Polanski and Woody Allen like the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah.
So, don't come too hard for Will unless you're prepared to take some other awards away. But he resigned, and to his credit, he's been very contrite since.
Yeah.
And says and again, it speaks to what we talked about in that last pod, where the joy has been stolen from that moment by giving the devil an opportunity in our anger. It's exactly what Paul's talking about in that scripture. And we can see it in someone who maybe isn't even a follower of Christ. We don't know. It's kind of amorphous. Denzel seems to be a mentor who is very Christian. He prayed with him after the fact. But like everything he's coming out, the statements is he's heartbroken. This should have been a night of joy for him. This pinnacle moment. Not unlike, the champion of the NCAA tournament. Like it's a mountaintop moment. And that was his mountaintop moment. And there's nothing but heartbreak around it now. For something dumb. Like Chris Rock's over it. I'm sure. He was probably over it the next day.
Yeah. And like he's done a couple stand-up shows since and has said, I'm not going to talk about it. So it's in the past.
Well, it probably actually helped his stand-up stuff because he's about to go on like he's scheduled like a comeback tour this summer. It was already scheduled.
I think that it would have sold out anyway.
Probably.
Just because Chris Rock's Chris Rock.
But there is definitely a renewed interest in him.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like he was unpopular. He'd been in Fargo in the past year. Quite good, actually.
His continuation of the Saw saga, he actually did a really good job of that. And
okay. Yeah, his acting career's going great.
He produced it. I think he might have even helped write it. So
very good. So yeah, he's fine. But like it's interesting to see Will Smith in this moment where he's just kind of in misery still. He may have already been in misery. I think that's the key thing here.
Although, so within like courtroom cases, what often helps with a lesser sentencing is the sign of remorse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And humility.
You think it could be just an act?
I'm not saying it's just an act. I'm saying that there could be a benefit to it. That within the court of public opinion, they see the remorse and we can move on given a brief span of time. For sure.
We're going to talk about one more thing about the Oscars, and then we're not going to ever talk about it again.
I don't even like the Oscars, so.
But this had to be pointed out. Because if you're still out there and you might be of the opinion of how awful Will Smith is, let's just talk about Amy Schumer for a second. In her first public appearance since co-hosting the Academy Awards, she addressed the incident with Will Smith and Chris Rock. And she says this, quote, I was kind of feeling myself. And then all of a sudden, Ali was making his way up. And it was just a explicative bummer. She called the incident really sad. So she's like, it says so much about toxic masculinity, she also said. So she's, feeling sorry for herself. Mm-hmm. Like, took all away my thunder. Evil, evil men. And she says, I think the best way to comfort ourselves would be for me to say the Oscar jokes that I wasn't allowed to say. Because of Will Smith, apparently. Or, maybe not because of that. These were just jokes she wasn't allowed to say. So she's mad because this incident took place, this toxic masculinity. And then she said, this place wouldn't even allow me to tell a joke about Alec Baldwin and the Rust incident. During, she said it was something about looking up like you were on the set of an Alec Baldwin movie. And she wasn't allowed to make that joke. And she was lamenting that. Making a joke where someone died. Someone's mom, a kid's mom. She had a kid and a husband.
Yeah, a family that has been on record saying there's no reason that we shouldn't still have our family member, our significant other with us today if certain protocols are followed. And yeah, so an incident where Chris Rock got slapped. And I'm not even sure, like, it might hurt physically for a little bit. But someone actually died.
Which, by the way, let's hold on. Don't rush past that, because 2 days after it happened, on her Instagram, Schumer said, "I'm still triggered and traumatized by the incident. I'm in shock. I'm stunned and sad. And I'm proud of myself and my co-host waiting for this sickening feeling to go away from what we all witnessed, a dude slapping another dude." And then she's like, a couple days later, she's mad at the toxic masculinity. She's still railing on that, and is complaining that she didn't get to make a joke about someone who died on the set of a movie by gunshot. What is wrong with these people?
That's real trauma right there.
And like, I think, okay, so I'd be lying if I said that this is coming from a neutral place, because I already didn't like Amy Schumer. Much like, some people didn't like Chris Rock. Mm-hmm. And I think that worked against him, that he could be kind of obnoxious. Well, Amy Schumer can be obnoxious in a different way. Her comedy is vulgar. I don't care about that. A lot of people who are of a certain persuasion may not like that kind of comedy because it's vulgar. I understand that several comics have gotten paid over the years by doing that. Mm-hmm. And it used to be more common than it is now. But I'm fine with that. What I don't like about what Amy Schumer does is they stand on these pedestals to scream about the wrongs of the world, and it's always from a place of self-righteousness. And then they say something like this where it's clear, it's like, yeah, you're just as broken as the rest of the world. Maybe pipe down on the righteousness, and let's talk about the wrongs in a civil manner. Like, she says something, like, it's okay to talk about, like, I'm willing to talk about the toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. If you're not immediately railing on the fact that you weren't able to tell a joke about a dead person, or essentially, or an incident where someone died, a mother, a wife, in a it was tragedy. You're going to joke about tragedy? Get out of here. You don't really care about people.
Yeah. Shockingly, most of us just really care about ourselves.
That is true. That's very true. And now we will never, ever talk about these Oscars again.
Good.
That could be a lie, because I just can't get over that we watched scripture play out on stage in that fashion as it pertains to anger.
Time will tell.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. We should talk about Jared Leto. Morbius is apparently hot trash. I have not seen it
I
yet.
think I will be watching it this weekend.
Ooh, awesome.
So I will let you know.
Does that mean I should probably go see it so we can review it?
So I will let you know how hot trash it is.
Okay.
So from friends reviewing it, so not like expert critics or anything, but friends, most of them said for most of the movie, it's okay. Mm-hmm. And then the end happens, and the end ruins the whole movie.
Yeah. So news broke this week of just how ridiculous Jared Leto is. Uproxx's Mike Ryan said that director Daniel Espinosa, someone told me that Jared Leto was so committed to playing Michael Morbius that even when he had to go to the bathroom, he would use his crutches that his character used in the movie and slowly limp to get to the bathroom. But it was taking, so Jared Leto's a notorious never break character guy. Like, so much so that there's all these legendary incidents on other movies where people were very angry.
Suicide Squad, he sent a pig's head to someone.
Yeah. So he's slowly limping to get to the bathroom, but it was taking so long between for pee breaks that a deal was made with him to get a wheelchair so someone could wheel him there quicker, and he agreed to that. Is this true? This writer for Uproxx says. Daniel Espinosa, the director for Morbius, says yes. He explained that Leto felt he needed to mimic and fully embody his character, who lived with chronic pain as a result of a specific blood condition. He went on to say, I think that what Jared believes is that somehow the pain of those movements, even when he was playing normal Michael Morbius, he needed because he's having this pain his whole life. Even though as he's alive and strong, it has to be a difference. Hey, man, it's people's processes.
Yeah, method acting. So I don't get it. Like, I know that De Niro is a method actor. I know that there's several method actors, but so making its rounds on Twitter and other social media platforms was a clip, and I sent it to you, of Sir Ian McKellen talking to Ricky Gervais. And it must have been for a show, but he was talking about, well, here's my method acting. I am Sir Ian McKellen, and then when the camera comes on, I become Gandalf. And my method is the script says move here, and I move here. And there's cue cards off to the side that say my lines, and I read them.
I mean, let's be very clear. We can sit here and call it method acting. But what Jared Leto is doing is not Daniel Day-Lewis writing everyone letters as Abraham Lincoln and like being the character while doing his normal things.
Yeah.
Off camera. Like, you can just see everyone on set and this dude, Leto, says, I need a break. Got to go to the bathroom. And then watching him slowly limp off the set while everyone's just kind of standing there going, I mean, time is money. Like, you could just sense everyone's annoyance in the way that this director answered these questions. And here's what I'm saying. So, like, let me ask you a question. Everybody, like, Jared Leto seems to be a respected dude in the acting profession. Mm-hmm. But I have a question. Is he a good actor? Is he really? What performance has he blown us away with? My So-Called Life.
What, didn't he get an award for?
I'm sure he did, but he was just
Dallas Buyers Club.
Oh, he might have for that.
He at least got nominated if he didn't win it.
Yeah, I just don't know, man. I don't know. For my money, there's way better actors out there.
So him getting killed early on in American Psycho still might be my favorite performance of his.
Listen to what you just said. Oh, man.
So my question is, how bad was it originally before they did like the reshoots and delaying of the release? Because they delayed it by like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I don't know. The director in the same interview said that Spider-Man No Way Home changed their movie. Like, Sony's just a mess, dude. They're just a mess. And this will continue until Marvel just needs to make a push to buy the character back.
Not Morbius.
No,
you can
leave. But no, he comes with him. Okay, so the reason Sony has Morbius is because when they bought the rights to a character, so when they bought the rights to Spider-Man, it's the same thing with Fantastic Four. So for years, the MCU didn't have access to Doctor Doom or the Silver Surfer or all these other characters that were seen to have originated from Fantastic Four comics.
Yeah.
So when you bought the rights to the comic character, you're buying the rights to all the characters who originated from within. So with Spider-Man, Morbius first appears in Spider-Man comics. So that's why Sony's out there making Morbius movies and Venom movies, and they're developing a Kraven the Hunter movie, which, like, look, Kraven's a cool villain in a rogues gallery sort of way, but you don't make a solo movie with Kraven the Hunter. If you don't think this is going to be a disaster, I don't know what to tell you.
So, yeah, I would still leave Morbius like somewhere in the dumpster.
Right. Yeah. Well, didn't I say that? Didn't I say that when they first started developing this? Like, I don't know what they're doing. Morbius is not an interesting character.
I do have the first comic book, though.
He's literally called Morbius the Living Vampire. I don't even know what that. How does that make sense? Like, what is that? I don't know. Sony is just ridiculous.
They're all about the Benjamins.
And I hate it. I hate that they have Spider-Man. And then, like, getting a taste of Spider-Man in the MCU has just made it all worse.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because now we could see what it could be. And then Sony still has access to make their terrible movies and ruin it all.
Because I think both characters of Venom and Carnage could be good if done by the right people. But Sony seemingly doesn't have the right people.
Yeah. Well, by right people, you're probably talking about Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
You need that one guy in charge who actually cares about the source material and cares about the fans. I think what Feige has proven is that he cares about the fans. He wants to be true to them. And showing that you could still make all the money doing that. It just takes
all the monies.
A little bit of extra work in the sense of making sure. I don't know what Feige's process is. I don't know why. I think it's because he's a fan. He probably started off as a comic book fan. And the dudes at Sony aren't. They don't care. It's the same thing with DC for years and Warner Brothers. Like all the mess with their like Superman movie that never made it, the Nick Cage Superman movie, the Death of Superman, whatever. The Kevin Smith script. I mean, Kevin Smith has gone on record for the script he wrote for a Superman movie that got trashed because he said the people at Warner Brothers just kept changing it.
I'm here for Nick Cage as any superhero.
It would have been hilarious, probably. I wish there was a Nick Cage Superman movie that existed just because it probably would have been hilarious. All right. Well, it's time to...
we don't want to talk about the guy that we teased last podcast but didn't mention him because we ran out of time.
Oh, yeah, we probably should because what a farce that is, too. And that's big. Ezra Miller got himself into trouble. Again. And now there's talk that he might be pulled off this movie.
The Flash is on hold.
And frankly, like, I was under the impression that this was mostly filmed. Like, what now? You're going to have to refilm the entire movie?
Maybe they can do what Zack Snyder did with his zombie Vegas movie. Was it Army of the Living Dead? Whatever. That had Dave Bautista in it. But they had the guy from that plays Scarecrow in Teen Titans. He was in it, but then he had allegations against him. And so then they like just reshot Tig Notaro doing his scenes, and then we're able to put her image in place of that guy. And so maybe they can get Grant from the Flash TV series.
So Ezra hasn't been doing promotional stuff for Fantastic Beasts, the Fantastic Beasts movie, the Harry Potter movie. And Warner has said it's because they're contractually mandating promo appearances for the Flash. They're saving his contractually mandated ones for the Flash. Although that seems, that's not why. Because now they're having meetings.
Big meetings.
To discuss his removal and how that's going to do. Basically, there was a pair of incidents in Hawaii. Miller apparently harassed bar goers for singing karaoke, which, I mean, if it's a bar and they're having karaoke, you can't do that.
No.
He eventually got arrested by local cops. Then he had a restraining order filed against this couple who say the actor burst into their hotel room and threatened them. And there's all sorts of reports out there that I can't really report on. But there's all sorts of corroborating evidence from locals who say this dude's a piece of work.
Which couple years ago, there was the incident with the lady in Iceland. I thought it was Russia, but it's Iceland. And like he tackles her like with a choke slam.
Yeah.
It is alarming.
Rolling Stone report recently came out with news that Miller apparently had meltdowns on the set of The Flash. While the insider stresses there was no yelling or violent outbursts, they described Miller as, quote, losing it. Ezra would get a thought in their head and say, I don't know what I'm doing. And now there's an emergency meeting. They have paused the future developments on Miller's projects, which, you know, if The Flash, this movie was supposed to be like a keystone, cornerstone to the rest of the future DC movies, right? Am I wrong?
That was some of the rumors in which, so it's so weird how DC does things. It's upsetting at the same time how they do things. So they had that graphic of all these movies coming out in 2022. And you see The Flash and you see Aquaman. Well, come to find out that, like, they were still actively filming those movies. Like, they're not done yet. It was just kind of as a promotional piece to get people really excited about DC again. And so then, like, right after the Batman's release, they're like, well, these two movies are actually coming out next year. And then we got Shazam 2 early. And so
my faith in a good DC movie universe future is maybe at an all-time low, which is saying something.
It's in the negatives.
Like Warner Brothers has enough trouble just putting movies that don't suck out there. And now they've got this problem with Ezra Miller, who from the beginning, when they announced him as the Flash way back when,
yeah,
I don't know, man.
So like several people pointed out he did good in Perks of Being a Wallflower. His character in...
There were rumblings of stuff even back then.
Yes. His character in the Fantastic Beasts movies, you don't get like that much acting from him until like the second one. And then there's been so many different cuts of Justice League, it's hard to tell much. And so
I can't believe he's in those Harry Potter movies. Like at this point, why would you put him in any sort of like saga where might have to keep using him? Although they just replaced Johnny Depp. But see, that sort of thing's bothersome to me. Like, I don't like it when they replace actors. And now, I mean, it appears they're going to have to do it with him with The Flash.
Although
there's a petition online from fans to make Grant Gustin the movie universe Flash.
I'm okay with it. I actually like Grant.
I like him, but the show is campy. Therefore, he's a campy Flash. And I just don't know how that fits into that universe.
You can have him be a different Flash.
Well, what are you going to do with... So Iris is a character? Are they going to bring TV Iris into the movie then?
No. This could be a parallel universe version of The Flash. Which we already know that
Warner Brothers is a mess, dude. It's like a contest between Warner Brothers and Sony to see who can mess things up the most.
Although I think DC, if they play their cards correctly and just separate from this universe mindset, could salvage a Shazam universe where we have Shazam, the Black Adam, and somehow Superman comes back.
Right. And so the smart...
Just keep those three separate from everyone.
Shazam's probably the best DCEU movie, and it's because it stood alone. It was a Shazam movie, which I think they're forgetting. They're trying to rush, and they're forgetting that Marvel, the MCU, started off with an Iron Man movie and a Hulk movie and a Thor movie and a Captain America movie, and it was their movies. They stood alone as stories.
And we scrapped the Hulk movie.
And then they connected them. You know, then they did the job of connecting them. all the while they're putting in these little
Easter
egg in credit scenes that are kind of drawing you along and connecting them in a small way. But yeah, they're a mess, and they've got a big problem on their hands right now.
Right now, they might as well just stick with the TV shows. That's what they do best.
Well, for a little while, they always get run into the ground. After a few seasons, they're not good anymore.
Well, I don't know how long you can keep a superhero TV show going.
Like everyone pretty much likes Lois and Clark now, but that seems to be the rhythm with those Arrowverse series. It's for the first couple of years, they're good.
Well, now we're into the HBO Max series of DC.
Yeah. You're a big fan of Peacemaker. I haven't watched it yet.
Peacemaker,
I need to.
Titans.
I don't have any interest in DC right now.
Pennyworth.
It's hard for me. But I am drawn to Peacemaker because it appears to be a standalone story. That makes me more likely to watch it at this point. All right. That's our news segment. We're going to head out to the lobby. Come with us. We're going to answer in listener questions coming up next in the lobby.
Welcome to the lobby.
All right, welcome to the lobby. We've come out to the lobby here to get ourselves a snack, maybe a beverage, and to answer listener questions.
A large tub of poppin' corn.
Imagine we're just waiting in line for our concessions and the listeners have questions. Your deepest questions you've always wanted to ask us. That's what this segment's for.
That's what I'm here for.
Lauren Allen is the first listener question of the day. She asks, which variety of Skittles is your favorite? And she included a picture, but she said it doesn't have to be one from the picture. So I didn't even know there were this many different flavors of Skittles.
Oh, yeah.
Because I hate Skittles.
Oh, that's a bold statement.
Sorry, Lauren. I don't like...
Have you had the purple bag?
No.
And I'm pretty sure it's wild berry.
I can remember when Skittles came out, and I had some, and as a kid, and I didn't eat them again because I don't like them.
So...
Because you look at them and you think M&M, and then you put them in your mouth and it's fruity, and I just don't. I'm not a fan.
So the purple bag by themselves, best. But if you freeze dry, vacuum seal Skittles, they do a popcorn thing, and they like pop, and the outside the inside becomes the outside, and they actually become like crunchy and like taste even better. I don't know how it's possible.
It's like a science experiment going on.
It is, but you can buy that.
Can't you just eat them out of the bag?
Yes, but there's people that
if I have to do work to make them good, I don't want that.
No, like people already do the work for you, and then you can buy those bags. Or if you have a friend that is a like doomsday prepper, they're like, "Oh, here, have this."
Yeah, look, if I'm prepping for doomsday, I just need lots of Reese's peanut butter eggs. That's all I need. That's the only candy I need.
Purple bag, by far the best.
Okay.
I'll speak on behalf of both of us.
Yeah, I'm not a big candy person. I'm not trying to be mean, Lauren. I'm just not a big candy person. In fact, like if I'm going to eat candy, I want one of the holiday themed Reese's, and only those. I don't like regular Reese's peanut butter cups because I want the holiday ones because the ratio of peanut butter mixture to the chocolate is higher.
So non-holiday, I go Reese's Fast Break.
Yeah, not enough peanut butter for me. I want all the peanut butter.
All of it.
And then we're getting like, why would I have a Reese's peanut butter cup if I could just get a tablespoon of actual peanut butter? Because I'm not a big fan of chocolate, if I'm being honest.
Oh, I love chocolate, so.
I'm not a sweets guy, I guess, is what I'm saying. So sorry, Lauren, but I hope Cody's answer was satisfying.
Yes.
And I hope you identified with whatever in the world he was talking about. I'm so lost. Crispy Skittles or something.
No,
or other.
like you can vacuum seal them like your doomsday prepping stuff, and then it explodes them. and they become like a popcorn kernel, essentially, or a piece of popcorn.
That's so wild.
It is, and it becomes good, and it's like hard and crunchy.
All right. Kyle Kessinger has 2 questions this week. The first one's just for me.
Okay, well, I didn't have an opinion, so.
He says, how's your dad doing? He's still racing? Always had a blast going to the speedway. My dad's doing good, man.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, my dad was an auto racer for a little while. Liked to do his thing on Friday and Saturday nights, and eventually like traveled around the Midwest. Like would go and, you know, like it was NASCAR, but it's not like the show.
Could have been Jeff Gordon.
No. He was using his own money. Which is why he doesn't do it anymore, because racing's expensive.
It is.
But he did that, and it was on asphalt, and it was fun. I like to go and watch my dad race. But if I'm being honest, racing's kind of boring too. And really, I was only waiting for someone to wreck.
Yeah.
Racing fans won't admit that. They'd be like, I like to watch the competition. Like, no, you don't.
I like to take a good nap during like the middle of the race. Wake up about the last 10 laps when there's actually action happening. And then, hey, it's over.
I've seen so many races where the cars get spread out. You can't even tell who's winning anymore. If they didn't have a board who'd tell you who's in the lead.
Yeah.
Because they're just spread out cars driving in a circle.
Unless it's a road course, and then there's some turn.
Didn't you see a dude spin out, get T-boned, and flip into the infield and hit a light pole? And you're just like, oh, that was fantastic.
Hope he's okay.
Generally, they're fine.
Most.
It's amazing how they protect those drivers in a vehicle moving like 200 miles per hour.
Yeah.
I don't even know how they do that. I couldn't even. The other day, I wanted to. My oldest daughter asked if we could go 100 miles per hour because she wanted to know what it would feel like. And so I figured, well, it's better I do it than she start driving and try to do it on her own. Mm-hmm. So we went out to like some country highway where nobody was around, and we did. But even then, I'm like, ooh, I got uncomfortable. Like, it doesn't feel good to me going fast.
Slow it down.
This is a neighborhood.
Well, someone's neighborhood.
My dad's doing great, Kyle. He's doing fine. He's retired. He bought him a house out in the country, which he always wanted.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah. So, and my dad, like, he's perfectly happy, like, working on cars in his garage and doing projects. And that's what he'll do. That's what he likes.
Living that sweet life.
Kyle also wants to know, what are some of your favorite cult classic movies? He said, my favorite is Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
I have not seen.
You haven't seen Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man? I believe that's Don Johnson, maybe. And I don't remember.
Yeah,
it's been so long since
I have not
movie.
seen it. Yeah.
Would you like to go first? Do you have a cult classic? Like, what are our definitions for a cult classic?
So, I mean, clearly it could not have been a success when it was released.
Yeah, can't be like a huge blockbuster.
But there's a big group of fans that you quote a line and they're likely going to quote the next line or are going to go all in on it and like start referencing their favorite parts, and you can tell that they're a fan of the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so what you go first.
Okay, so like Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
That one
A lot of people like that one.
Is one on my list.
I'm not a fan. It's just too weird.
I enjoy it.
I don't begrudge you for it.
One of my top 3 Jim Carrey movies is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
Very underrated. And Better Off Dead. So that one might be my favorite next to The Big Lebowski.
Okay, so Better Off Dead, that's like a rabbit hole in and of itself, though. Because, and let me tell you, Better Off Dead is directed by Savage Steve Holland, okay?
Savage Steve.
Savage Steve did another movie with John Cusack called One Crazy Summer with him and Demi Moore. And so it's like it's almost like it's not just a cult classic. You have a cult family of movies. Better Off Dead is so gloriously weird.
It is.
And so it's like all about this kid who lives in this weird family who John Cusack, who's like a high school senior, and he wants to be the best on the ski team, which is already completely unrelatable, right? Like, because we live in Kansas.
Yes.
But I'm assuming that's unrelatable for most people. A ski team in high school. And he's also lost what he thinks is the girl of his dreams at the very beginning to the ski captain.
His friend is obsessed with drugs, but he's like, this mountain's made of pure snow. And then
Booger from Revenge of the Nerds
starts like snorting up actual snow.
He's amazing in that movie, by the way. There's such good lines. There's iconic lines in there. So like the paper boy is a recurring theme in the movie because he's like, they play him as like a horror movie. He's like popping up and scaring the character. There's the two Asian drivers that always want to race him, but the one talks like Howard Cosell. Lane Maya. It's like, what is happening? It's just so gloriously weird. The mom's always cooking things that look terrible. So there's the line, I want my $2 by the paper boy. There's one of my favorite lines where there's an accidental explosion.
Yeah.
And it almost kills the neighbor's mom. And he's like, gee, Ricky, I'm really sorry I blew up your mom. Which is a reused line. Yeah, that's crazy. And One Crazy Summer, if you like Better Off Dead and you haven't seen One Crazy Summer, it's you take that weirdness and you add Bobcat Goldthwait to it. Chef's kiss. Glorious.
So I have not seen One Crazy Summer.
Oh man. And it's like you take that weirdness, but you put it in like the 80s summer vacation movie, the trope.
Yeah.
Like that they do in like Great Outdoors, for instance. So like there's a romantic interest who's a local that John Cusack is falling for. There's all the weird characters. It's just, it's fabulous. I'm here for Savage Steve Holland movies.
So South Park had an episode that was Better Off Dead-esque in the fact that it's a ski town and that his parents are brought in, or Kyle's parents go there because of they're trying to get a condo. They're like, you just sit in on a presentation, you get a free ski trip for a condo in this ski resort town. And then he gets challenged by this dude to race him down the mountain for this girl. And
does he race on one ski?
At one time, I think he might lose a ski.
I don't want to, spoiler alert, because I do recommend, if you haven't seen Better Off Dead, go seek it out. It's so wonderfully 80s and weird.
I love it.
And funny. And early John Cusack, too.
Real Genius also will make my list.
Oh, yeah. Is that I suppose it wasn't hugely successful. I would call it a cult classic.
Because, like, Val Kilmer just has some random off-the-cuff lines and scenes in it that just kind of steal the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I stole too much time. Your turn.
Well, also, Better Off Dead, I had a huge crush on the foreign exchange French girl that he eventually falls in love with, who's just like his friend at first.
Yes.
I think everyone did back in the 80s, though. That was the point. His girlfriend that breaks up with him in the beginning is horrible. She's a horrible person, but that's like another 80s trope. When you're talking about cult classic movies, I talk about The Burbs a lot. just eminently quotable, but wasn't a successful movie. Tom Hanks hates it. He's not even a fan. He's at times called it his worst movie. And each time he does it, a little piece of me dies. Because I'm just like, Tom, I love that movie. And I love you in that movie. Ray, this is Walter. Ah! And the camera's like, so good. It's such a good movie. And Bruce Dern's character, who's like the Vietnam vet, who's like still overly military. He's always wearing camos. He's like talking on the radio. He's like, Red Rover, let Ray go on over. The Burbs is great. I think one of my all-time favorite cult classics, and I know Kyle will appreciate this because I just know Kyle, and this is his kind of movie. Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic. And if you are at all a fan of Mortal Kombat, you're going to want to see Big Trouble in Little China because Mortal Kombat basically rips off the character of Raiden from Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
Because there's a dude who looks just like Raiden in that movie who's like a bad guy. And it's basically the main character is played by Kurt Russell, who's a truck driver. He somehow gets embroiled in this like Chinese mafia story.
As one does.
And there's all this mystical things happening underneath the surface. And it's 80s cheese. And it's so gloriously brilliant.
Yeah.
So I would have to say probably Big Trouble in Little China. I think Big Lebowski.
Yeah, Big
comes
Lebowski
close.
is on my list. It might be number one for me.
Because commercially, box office wise, it was one of the Coens' worst movies. But so
it
obviously,
might be one of their best.
Yeah, it's one of their most beloved now.
Yeah.
It's a cult classic as well. Big Lebowski is incredible, but not for kids.
Definitely not.
A lot of cursing. But yeah, I think those are good. Those are our questions for this week. When we post the Ask Us Anything, make sure and jump on those posts and ask us a question. Ask us anything. Kyle asked me about my dad.
Yeah.
So you can ask us personal questions, whatever. We'll answer just about anything unless it's, private. But why would you want to ask us something like that?
You can ask me what celebrity my dad looks like, and you will be shocked.
Oh, I think we just have to pretend that someone asked it next time because I'm dying to know.
Yeah, and there's a legit, people have stopped my dad when I was there and asked him, "Are you this person?
Are you him? Are you him? Are you he?" Yeah. No, okay. Someone ask what celebrity Cody's dad looks like when we post that post.
Spoiler, I don't look like my dad at all. So,
All right. That was the lobby. Make sure and jump in on the action, and you might be featured on the podcast next week. We'll be right back right after this for the main thrust of this podcast. This
the focus.
The main focus. Yes, the main focus. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast, Pop Culture Pastor, Dave and Cody hanging out, and we're finally to our main subject today. Whenever you listen to this, whatever, we're all places and at all times when you're on a podcast.
Yeah,
we're all things to all people. That's what Paul said in the Bible, right?
Exactly, something like that.
And so we're here. We're going to talk about board games. What board games, what was the first board game that you remember? Or maybe, should we expand it to card games too? I don't even know because Uno was pretty big in my family.
Uno's still big.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was what I played whenever we'd go over to my grandparents' house.
How sinister would a game of Uno get at your house? Because I know Uno ruined some Thanksgivings. I think at my grandma's house.
It wouldn't get that bad at my grandparents' house, but with friends, oh yeah.
We always tell this story in my family. My grandfather, who's since passed away, he was like the military strong silent type. So he would, I can remember the times he talked to me, right?
Yeah.
Because they were so few. But when we played a game and he would play sometimes, and it really humanized him for me. Obviously, I'm not saying that to criticize my grandpa about how he was silent and didn't talk to me much. You know, he had seen more terrible things in his life, and obviously that comes from a place of different generations, different things they lived through. But when he would play games with us, it would like humanize him, and he would do this thing in Uno where he would like psych out the person who was playing before him. It's like, you're gonna play the card that I need, and he would put his finger on his temple. Like he was using mind control, and darned if they wouldn't play the card he needed every time. He'd be like, he'd be on Uno, and he'd have that color that wasn't the color on the board or whatever, and that every time, man, they'd play the number that he needed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I just remember that a lot. But he would do that. He would like, you're going to play the card that I need to go out.
Now so playing it now as an adult, I have to like say, what rules are we playing by? Are we playing by the legit Uno rules? Or are you playing by the stack the draw twos and stack the draw fours?
Now explain this to me, because when I played, I think there were only one set of rules. Now, what do you mean stack? They can stack them?
Instead of like, if I played a draw two, you would not necessarily have to draw two if you had a draw two card. So then it can become a draw four for someone else after you. Yes, and then they can keep going. That's not how Uno's supposed to be played.
So yeah, the way we played was if someone played a draw two, you had no recourse. You drew two, and then it was the next player's turn.
Yeah. Uno has spoken on their official Twitter account.
Yeah, why we always got to change things?
Because they're loose cannons out there.
It doesn't seem right. Now, there was a game where I was okay with certain of the rules changes, but they were listed in the rules. Like, so Monopoly's
the go-to.
Had its base rules, but then in the instruction manual, which was on the box or on the insert of the box, which they don't do that anymore, but that was cool.
Yeah.
They had like the extra section at the end, like options that you could do. And one of them that our family liked to do was free parking. Had money in it. So like anytime you were paying the taxes or something like that, you paid it to the middle, and whoever landed on free parking would get all that money. It was like inserting the lottery into Monopoly.
Which, by the way, if you play that on like Xbox Live, the free parking is the instant cash.
Yeah.
Like they play by those rules.
That was heavily adopted, I think, because it wasn't part of the base Monopoly rules, but I seem to remember lots of people playing that way. Like even when I'd go to friends' house, they're like, "Oh yeah, we play with the lottery, free parking." Like it was just conditioning us to all be lottery addicts.
Although Monopoly, as a teenager, got like certain guys banned from my house. There was a fight that broke out over Monopoly, and certain people could not be at the house at the same time.
Nothing like seriously. Like in our family, the saying goes, the game of Monopoly wasn't over until someone threw it off the wall.
Yeah.
And it would always be inevitably, it would always be like, it wouldn't be that you got mad at someone. I mean, you'd get mad if you rolled, like you landed on Boardwalk.
Yeah.
There was like 10 numbers you could have rolled to be safe and 2 numbers you couldn't roll. And you roll one of those numbers to end the game and you get mad. But I think the thing that made most people mad was there was always like that one person in the game, whether it was like a little sister or someone who would trade dumb trades.
Yeah.
And like, listen, it's a simple rule. You don't trade unless you have something you gain a monopoly out of it. Right? You don't give someone a monopoly if you're not getting a monopoly.
Yeah.
That would make me mad. That would set me off because I wanted to win. And I'd just be like, why are you doing that? You don't get anything.
Yeah. Card tables were flipped over.
Oh, yeah. I'm all on board the flipping tables narrative of Jesus. Be like, well, Jesus flipped tables, and if you make that trade, I'm going to flip this table. I'm all aboard that narrative. I usually discount when I'm pastoring.
Yes.
When it comes to Monopoly.
Well, it makes about as much sense as when people do use it.
Yeah. So, is there a game that you remember, like, that's kind of off the beaten path that you got for Christmas or your family played, like when you were like, what's the earliest game you can remember?
So the earliest game that wasn't like Uno, Yahtzee, or Monopoly, I had a Goosebumps board game.
Whoa, what?
Yeah. Then, well, you would have had to been a kid in the early 90s. But yeah, there was a Goosebumps board game, and there's like pieces that made a graveyard, and yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah. When I was a kid, of course, Sorry is a big game, which is basically like a version of, what's that game called? It's not Sorry. It's, there's a name for
Trouble.
It's Trouble, but it's like is it Parcheesi?
Oh.
Is it like the base, like that's the game? It's just they put a different name on it. I don't remember.
So honestly, like growing up, there's a lot of shows that talked about Parcheesi. I don't think I've ever seen Parcheesi like played at all.
Did you ever play backgammon?
Yes.
It was probably with a grandparent.
Yes.
They'd bring out the fancy faux leather case. And you'd be like, I don't know what board game this is, but I'm about to have my mind blown. And then they open it up and you're like, this is it?
Yeah.
You got black circles and white circles? This game's lame. I'm just saying.
What's the game with the marbles? And like it had like colorful triangles.
No, that's Parcheesi.
Is that Parcheesi?
No, it's Chinese checkers.
Yeah, there we go.
Chinese checkers. So yeah, we had Chinese checkers too, which seems overtly or subtly racist now. Why is it Chinese?
Probably has a different name now.
I feel a little nervous saying that, but that's what it was called. And yeah, it was like checkers where you leap. You were leaping the other person's marbles, I believe.
Yes, that is the game. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, I remember Sorry was a big game. We had Trouble was another game because Trouble was cheap. That was always like one of the cheap games you could buy for kids, and kids like the dice popper.
Sometimes the dice would not pop up high enough, and you just keep getting the same number.
Yeah, Trouble and Sorry. I mean, essentially the same game.
Yeah,
except Sorry didn't have the cool dice popper. Here's a game I remember. My grandpa. It was at my grandpa's house. My other grandpa, and every time I go there, he had this game called Bermuda Triangle. That came out in like 1978. And here's the description from the box. Bermuda Triangle, the legendary area in the Atlantic Ocean where dozens of ships and planes have disappeared without explanation, is the setting of this exciting game of suspense. Ooh. The sinister mystery cloud hovers, weaves, and sweeps, swallowing some ships as it passes. Can you make it home with your cargo, or will your fleet become just one more victim in the Bermuda Triangle?
If it's like my luck with the Oregon Trail, I'm a goner.
So essentially you had it was almost kind of like Battleship because you had multiple ships and you had this course in the ocean that you had options to try and which course you wanted to take. And you would go pick up like cargo from somewhere, and then you try to bring it back to your home port. But the conceit of the game is there's this large figure 8 shaped hurricane cloud, and that it was, it had its own dice to see where it would go and where it would go. And it was a piece of plastic that sat on a little spinner, and there were magnets on it. So there were little metal pieces in the ship. So if the storm would go over your ship, it would pick it up and it would make your ship disappear, just like the Bermuda Triangle. It was a simple game, but I was like 5. So
that's intense.
It was
for a 5-year-old.
Because sometimes the cloud would just kind of graze over the ship, and it wouldn't do anything. But then sometimes it would go over, and you hear the click, and you're like, "No, my UFOs just stole my cargo ship."
Yeah, Parcheesi looks like that, which our viewers cannot see, or
So it's the same
listeners
game.
can't see.
Sorry, Trouble. It's essentially the same game.
Although it looks so weird.
Yeah.
I don't know about it.
I don't know either. Parcheesi sounds like, so, the poor kids played Trouble.
Yes.
The rich kids played Parcheesi.
We had trouble.
Another big one from my youth was, and this is going to be weird because you're going to be like, really? But Trivial Pursuit in the 80s
I was going to say,
was it.
so my parents had like 3 or 4 different sets of Trivial Pursuit. And so I would get to play occasionally when we'd have game night.
And you'd get throttled, right?
There were a couple of grandparents that knew.
Unless you had Family Edition.
We did have a family edition, and I can hold my own. But, and as I got older, I got really good at Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah, well, me too, because I grew up playing the only edition they had available, which was the Genesis edition. Mm-hmm. Sometimes mistakenly called the Genius edition, but that wasn't the word. It was Genesis. And that was the only one they had, was just this original game of Trivial Pursuit. And yeah, so like when you were a kid, history, everything was geared towards the adults.
Yeah.
And I would get slaughtered. But as time went on, like my mom and I used to play this a lot. And my mom would skunk me up until I reached about this certain age. Now she would never admit this, but I'll take her down anytime. She's getting old. She can't remember everything.
Ouch.
Hey, I am the World Series of Pop Culture Champion of the University of Kansas from 2005.
Somewhere.
Don't try me.
It is on a plaque.
No, it's not. No one probably remembers. They probably forgot. And it was probably the only year they did that because that show was big. It was like on VH1. Mm-hmm. And so they did their own version of it. I hope it was the only year they did it because I can then say I'm just the World Series of Pop Culture Champ at KU.
Name it and claim it.
Well, that's what I think.
Yes.
But yeah, my family was fond of the Trivial Pursuit. And that was probably how I got so good at trivia. Everybody would accuse me of memorizing the cards, which there's a ton of cards in there. How are you going to memorize them?
Maybe you have a photographic memory.
I don't, but I would look at them like in the bathtub. I'd soak in the bathtub, and I can remember as a kid taking the cards with me, trying to guess them, but then looking at all the answers. I mean, I guess what's the difference between learning and memorizing, really?
Good question.
Can I help it if my brain retains those insignificant details?
Maybe. I don't know.
I really always wanted to be on Jeopardy.
There's some times on Jeopardy where I'm like answering questions before the contestants buzz in, and I'm like, I do great. And then there's some times where I'm like, who knows this?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what separates like the master players of Jeopardy from the rest. Mm-hmm. Is the master players, there's any category that goes up there, they're just money. But like, yeah, for us normies, if I was ever on Jeopardy and be like, come on, sports, come on, movie quotes. Because yeah, there's some categories that be like, well, nope. The before and after, when you get cute with it, no thanks. Can't do that.
A game that was popular, especially once I was like older elementary, middle school age, Stratego.
Oh, yeah. So other kids had that. I never had that.
Oh, it's fun. So besides being a pastor, I also am a children's case manager for a mental health center. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the games that I will choose to play to work on learning, cooperation, following directions, those sorts of things, and controlling your temper, because there's enough strategy in it that you actually have to think things out. And so since I play it quite frequently, I'm usually a few steps ahead of my kids. Mm-hmm. And so I think I've only lost once out of probably playing 500 times. So
oh, wow.
It's rude.
So you're just basically torturing your caseload kids.
Not
Well
intentionally.
done. Well done.
I'm seeing if they
Very
respond.
therapeutic.
Seeing how they respond. But most of the time they do really well. I have some kids that are like, we're not doing Stratego. And I'm like, I don't blame you.
I mean,
Although
listen,
I have some that are up for the challenge.
I'm not going to criticize because anything I play with my kids, like I'm playing for keeps.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell them it's like, well, it's for your own good because I need to make sure you can take a hit in real life. You can take a loss.
Oh, yeah. You shouldn't be getting that upset over a board game.
Oh man, well, my family did not adhere to that rule. I mean, we had yelling matches. I can remember the extended family, even on like Christmas Eve. We'd all be partying on Christmas Eve, and like, so the kids weren't allowed to on Christmas Eve. The kids all had to go play with them, with themselves, and the adults would play games, and the kids weren't allowed to be in the adult games, right? Mm-hmm. Because there was enough adults where, anyways. But I can remember hearing like why would you trade that? You can't trade. and of course, my family's really competitive though. Like the board games were it wasn't just, they just were really competitive. But they're so ingrained in my memory too. So you're young enough where by the time you're growing up, board games are fading.
Yeah, video games are on the scene.
The video game boom makes board games fade. And it's funny because when I was a kid back in the 80s, board games were huge. Like some of my best memories are from board games. I can remember I was in second grade living in Topeka, Kansas. And it was just me and my mom. That was it. And we had like this freak ice storm in March. It was like 1983, and there was a freak ice storm across northeastern Kansas, and we lost power for like 6 days. It was something ridiculous.
You were in the dark ages.
Well, man, it was 1983. Dude, I don't know what to tell you, man. We didn't have internet. We didn't have anything. And so I remember my mom didn't go to work, and I didn't go to school because there was no school because power was out. And for 6 days, we like sat in the living room with blankets on because it was cold, playing games. And my mom, I love my mom, but she wasn't there a lot because she was single parent. She worked a lot. And so, man, I really look back at those 6 days and remember it very fondly. We just played games. But even then, like she'd beat me at Monopoly or I'd beat her, and it was on like Donkey Kong. We'd have to go cool off for a while.
Well, thank goodness it was nice and cold outside.
But like games were so huge, and then video game boom kind of
ruined it all.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever have the game Perfection?
Refresh my memory. I know I've heard of it, but I didn't have it.
Okay, so like growing up, there was an annoying commercial, and the song would get stuck in your head. And the guy would go, "Pop goes perfection," and like so. There's all.
That's the one that pops the pieces out of the board.
Yeah, so you're trying to get all the pieces in the right slots, and if you do it before the timer and like hit it, it won't pop up. But if you don't, then all the pieces go flying, and you lose pieces.
I'm not really sure why in the 80s we thought it was so important to give ourselves anxiety from games because Operation was big then too, and that was like the worst. That was like, look at these hands, Cody. I've always been a big dude and have huge hands. Like, that's not the game. I was not put on this earth to be a surgeon. And I would always lose at Operation. It was the worst, too, because it was almost like getting electrocuted, even though you weren't. But that was the feeling. You're like, ah!
They have games like that now.
They still do?
So
in this day and age, when we're all so anxious, that doesn't seem like a good idea.
So there's like this hot potato game. And you gotta like keep tossing the hot potato back and forth. But if you are the last one to get it, when the timer goes off within the potato, it zaps you.
No.
Yes.
What? It's like playing with a live grenade.
It is.
That's wild. That just seems wrong. We don't need that pressure. We don't need that stress. Everybody's already too stressed out.
I like to think that they were trying to prepare you for the ACTs or the SATs. They knew you got to start them young and they got to be able to handle the pressure. And then, boom, they're ready for real world, even though testing is not necessarily real world scenarios.
Other old games I had. So I was an only child. So this is going to sound really sad, but I would get these games for Christmas, and then I would just play with myself. So I remember I had this game called Fireball Island. Have you ever heard of this game?
That's made up.
Oh, no. Fireball Island was amazing. And it had this huge board, right? And it was like this island set. It was like a 3D board. And there was a big volcano in the middle. And you'd move your guy along these things trying to collect all these, at these checkpoints, you would get these little tiles that were points. But at any given time, a certain dice roll would trigger the volcano. And there were these things that moved on the board. You moved them when you hit certain combinations on the dice, where the ball would roll out of the volcano and take a different route each time. And so your dude, and if you get hit by the fireball, you go all the way back to the beginning. It was intense, man. It originally came out in 1986. And they recently came out with it again, and I got it in 2021. A Target version came out, and I got it again. It's much improved. Like, it's a much cooler game surface. My kids were not as into it as I was. It's sat and collected dust on our shelf.
Oh, kids.
But yeah, that was a game that was special to me, and nobody would play it with me. That's what I remember. What other games did you guys play growing up?
So as I got older, this game kind of became the it game. Apples to Apples.
You see, that's a weird one too. It's so that's the kind of game that would set my family off, because if you're competitive, you don't want to play Apples to Apples because it's arbitrary.
Very. You have to know the person that's judging when you put down your card.
Yeah. In fact, whenever someone did bring it up as an older person, like I've been around kids. I'm a youth pastor, and sometimes they want to play that game, and I'm like, I hate that game. I don't want to play that game because sometimes they wouldn't even understand.
Yeah, the references.
Yeah.
So I've had that happen a few times where I'm like, I wasted a perfectly great card on this, you jerk face. But so like, if you know the people you're playing with really well, it can be amazing. And like, so I went a dark route once in Apples to Apples. The green card was, or the card that was popped up that everyone played on was messy. Mm-hmm. And then I had the JFK assassination card. And the person that was next to me had a dark sense of humor, even though they graduated from a Christian college. And I'm like, I think I'll win this one. And I slide it, and like they go through, and then they get to that card and they start laughing, and I'm like, got him.
Side note, like I'm pretty sure the Zapruder film took my innocence in 8th grade when they made us watch it.
Yeah.
So we had like this like conspiracy theorist come talk to our history class in 8th grade about the JFK assassination.
What?
Yeah, for real. Like he's in the police department, but it was like his hobby. And so, yeah, we watched like the Zapruder film, and he's like, we're 8th graders. And he's like, oh, and you see this part here where Jackie O, or not Jackie O at the time, but Jackie Kennedy is like, she's like reaching back, looks like she's trying to get out of the car. No, she's picking up pieces of his skull. I'm just like, oh, bro, what? Like, why? Everybody reacted. It's like, well, you just react in that situation. And she thinks she's, can still save him.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that scarred me and like removed my innocence. I was just like, oh, nothing will ever be okay again.
The History Channel had like nonstop JFK assassination like conspiracy shows growing up. So
yeah, I remember that.
I already had that one ruined.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, that's an aside. I don't know
Yes.
how. I'm not quite sure how we got there, but there you go. So games go through like this lull. So Nintendo comes out and there's like the video game boom, and everyone thinks board games are going to be a thing of the past, and they are for a while. And then in 1995, in Germany, Frank Cosmos Verlag put out a game called Die Siedler von Catan. And this was the game, The Settlers of Catan. And this game changes everything.
It does.
This is the one. This is the one where like it takes time to get traction, because I don't remember ever seeing or hearing about it before like 2005, like 10 years.
I was
later.
going to say, I think mid to late 2000s, it like blows up on the scene because like the Green Bay Packers offensive line, they all play it. I think it makes an appearance in Pitch Perfect.
Yeah.
Like, so there's definitely some pop culture references to it mid 2000s.
Yeah, and it's like there's a word to explain these games, that like a category that I can't remember right now. But it inspires like all these copies. Yeah, like you said, pop culture references. So like in Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
Ben's game, the Cones of Dunshire. Like that's kind of like, it's super complicated, but you can tell it's like built on the same principles of games like Settlers of Catan. But I can remember playing this with my new family when I got married. Like they had discovered it and I hadn't yet, and it just quickly became our favorite game, Settlers of Catan. Like I had a T-shirt that said, "My favorite thing to do is settle Catan." No longer fits me. I was smaller.
That is a great shirt.
Yeah,
I kind of wish I had it.
I bet you could still get some fun Catan shirts out there.
Yeah.
But that is a game that really brings back this certain style. It's a game that like for a while everybody was looking for the next award-winning game from Germany.
Yeah.
Like it has the Bundesspiel award or something like that. And then from then on, you're like going to that weird gaming nook store in like a downtown area of a big city, and you're like, oh, look, this new game has that symbol. It won the Bundesliga award.
Like I remember when bookstores were still a thing, they would have like a little like board game aisle.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to go peruse it and see what was happening.
And it really gives rise to like these gaming stores. So after the bookstores kind of figured out, like Barnes and Noble had a game section,
Books A Million.
yeah,
Those
and
sorts of
then
things.
it gives rise to these like specialized stores that are game stores where they actually have like gaming nights where they had a section of the store with just tables and you could go in there and play with other people who like the game. And along with it comes this like explosion of these games. So we're now, oh my goodness, there's just tons of games. We were just talking about someone before we started recording the podcast, someone who isn't on the podcast with us, but we were talking about what we were going to talk about. And we were just, one of us said like, yeah, there's just so many now that it's hard to find. It's hard to find a game when you want to look for something new because it's almost overwhelming.
That, and also, do you have someone that is willing to play it with you? Because there's so many different types and variations, and some people are very particular, like they want to stick with this game and just keep playing it. Like I know some Catan fanatics that's their game. They're not venturing out from Catan, but there's several that will.
Well, there's several expansions that can change the game in little ways for you. There's a player expansion where you can play more than 4 players.
So there is a game that I don't know how long it's been out. I'd say forever. I could be wrong. But that I want to play. But I think to start up, it just is expensive, and you'd have to have other people to play with.
Okay.
And that's Warhammer.
Okay, so now Warhammer is a role-playing game.
Yes.
Now, right?
But there's pieces and yeah. So if we're going to include card games, I'm going to include the Warhammer.
It's definitely a different category, but then it's something different. So Dungeons and Dragons came out, and I know I just said a keyword that for having the title pastor in my podcast, I know all the Christians just went,
How dare you?
They're holding their breath. So Dungeons and Dragons got big in the 80s, and then, I know Warhammer's been around for a while, but Warhammer's different.
Yeah.
So Warhammer, the kids that played Warhammer, it was almost about the art. So you'd get these pewter figurines, and then half the fun was painting them. They would hand paint them, and they were if you had a friend who was into the Warhammer, oh man, the painting and the particularness of the little figurines was almost bigger than the game.
So there are quite a few celebrities that are playing it now. Rahul Kohli, who is in Midnight Mass. He's the sheriff.
All right. Yeah.
He's also in Haunting of Hill House.
Henry Cavill.
Big
Warhammer guy.
Spider-Man. Tom Holland.
So is it a British thing?
All the Brits are playing it because those three guys are Brits.
Oh, I didn't know the dude from Midnight Mass was.
Yes, he's British.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, and evidently now, people 3D print their own.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And so
back then you had to go drop, $40 on a dragon figurine from the game store.
yeah,
the weird game store, by the way. So we had a game shop back this would have been, late 80s, early 90s. And we had a store downtown that was, they had it was half toys. It was a toy store, but it was the weird toys, right? Not your KB run of the mill toys. The stuff you could get at Kmart or Walmart. They had the weird toys, and then they had the game section that was all all the stuff you couldn't get at those regular stores. So the role-playing games. And then they would have the figurines. So you could get yourself a wizard with the little crystal ball on the end of the staff. The pewter figurines at this time were huge.
Oh, yeah. And evidently there's also several variations of Warhammer now. There's even...
there's a space one.
There's a Munchkin Warhammer, which Munchkin games are huge right now.
Oh, yeah, we should talk about Munchkin.
There's a case manager I work with. She has probably 10 variations of Munchkin.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Because Munchkin was the rage about, we were playing it 10 years ago because I used to work where you work.
Yes.
And so I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah. We would, the sets of Munchkin we combined together would just make this huge game of Munchkin.
Yeah.
Munchkin is by the way, if you're for the uninitiated, first of all, if you're a nerd and you don't know what Munchkin is,
how dare you?
Come on. But Munchkin's a card game that simulates a role-playing environment. It's got that feel. So you're dungeons and monsters, but it's funny.
It is.
There's a lot of comedy in the cards, and it's not to be taken seriously.
Yeah, there's but
you still win. Someone's still a winner.
I've gotten to play the most is a pirate version.
Oh, Pirate Munchkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and it was funny. And
my youth group's really into Marvel Munchkin.
Nice.
But it's so complicated now. It's with every version of Munchkin, it would get more complicated. It was simple at first, but now there's well, I have the Infinity Gauntlet, so I can just take your weapon and blah, blah, blah. And I'm oh man, it's too much. I can't.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
My youth group, I took them on a trip once, and they were up at 3 a.m. yelling at each other about Marvel Munchkin. And I'm just seriously, you guys got to go to bed. I can't believe that Munchkin has inspired this friction.
Not here for this.
Part of me kind of admires it because I'm such a competitive guy.
So, okay, like the lone Christian game I'm going to throw out there, although, so it was kind of like a combination of Trivial Pursuit meets, I don't know, because there was a video component, but Jeremy Camp, Christian singer, had like a Bible trivia game, but there was a board with it too. And yours truly was a beast back in high school. You get to the Old Testament, and I'm taking out fools left and right.
Is Jeremy Camp's picture on the box?
It is.
That's amazing. CCM artist Jeremy Camp's Bible trivia game. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just today, I saw an article about someone wrote an article about adding Junior Asparagus to Super Smash Brothers and said it's time. Add VeggieTales to Super Smash Brothers. I was like, yes, amen, yes, and amen. Make it happen. So Catan comes out and it creates this wave of all these games. And I think the next big game that I remember just taking over was a game called Ticket to Ride.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise known as the train game.
So that same person I work with has the train game, and I've only seen it played. I have never gotten to actually be there when it is being played.
And the reason Catan inspires this, by the way, because as of 2020, more than 32 million copies in 40 languages had been sold of Settlers of Catan. So it just creates this wave, and Ticket to Ride is kind of like the next one. And as of 2014, 3 million copies were sold of Ticket to Ride. So this is like, it just becomes big business, these games. But back when Ticket to Ride comes out, it was like Catan, Ticket to Ride. There were a few other ones. Carcassonne. Have you ever heard of
No.
I like to say it's French. Carcassonne, but you might call it Carcassonne. It's like a tile laying game and castles and like
that
medieval
sounds fun.
stuff. It is. It's a fun, game, puzzle game. But there were a few of them, but then this is before the glut. Just like what it is now, where there's just tons of games.
So many.
But Ticket to Ride is originally another German game that they turn into an American game. And basically the American version is it's the beginning of the train connecting the country, right? So you have all these stops and you're trying to build, you're trying to collect cards with routes. And you're trying to get your routes done. So you're trying to build trains to your routes to collect points.
Makes sense.
And this was another big one in our family. By the way, the German award I was looking for was the Spiel des Jahres.
Oh.
The Spiel des Jahres.
I don't know why I didn't know that off the top of my head.
Because Ticket to Ride won the Spiel des Jahres in 2004. I'm probably murdering those words, by the way. Probably not even close to saying that.
Board game fanatics are rolling over right now in their graves.
And this was another game that has like just tons of variations and expansions and just different versions. Like there's an Asia and India, a Heart of Africa. I mean, there's just one of these games has been made for just about anything. There's a card game. There are, of course, just computer games and apps made from this game. And Ticket to Ride, super fun game.
It looked fun.
Have you never played Ticket to Ride?
I told you, I've only gotten to observe it.
Wow.
Once.
We got to play it. Although I don't like playing it now because my mom broke my board. She took it on a vacation. She borrowed it. She returned it with a broken board and then didn't even buy us a new one. You know what she did? She bought her a new one. She liked my game. She liked my game so much. And she broke the board and then bought herself the game.
I'm
like,
love
hey,
that.
yo, I think you should give me the new version and you can take the board you broke.
Oh.
I don't like playing it anymore because of that.
So now there's like even a market for like specialized like gaming tabletops. Like there's a Catan table that you can buy.
Oh, it's so cool too.
It looks awesome.
Like you spend like $400 and this dude like woodworks it, right?
Yeah.
Like wooden pieces and just so gone is the problem of the weak, thin puzzle piece board that connects together and never quite sits right.
It
so
doesn't.
This guy would make like this wooden tabletop with grooves where the pieces set down. Oh man. Yeah, that's dream. That's like if you're like, dude, you gotta love Catan, man. You gotta really love it, or
you
be
have
rich.
to be William Gates.
William Gates. You have to be Cody's close personal friend, William Gates, Jeffrey Bezos, So there's several games that we play here, but this gives right. So I think with the glut of these games, we're seeing another shift. Because here's some years back, an interesting game comes out where all of a sudden you're not playing against the other players. It's called a cooperative game. Mm-hmm. The big one that everyone remembers and is the most popular one is called Pandemic.
Yeah.
Which hits a little too close to home now, but I digress.
Based on a real life story.
It was a game about an epidemic, and you would work together with the other participants in the game, and you either all won or you all lost. And I don't think you want to know what losing meant.
Yeah.
Mad Max, that's what it meant.
Fury Road. So like the real life like cooperative game is the escape rooms, but now they even have an escape room board game.
Yeah.
And so
well, and there's so many games now you're seeing that kind of flooding the market. Mm-hmm. But I pay attention because I don't want that game. Let me tell you something. I don't want to play Pandemic because I want to win. I don't want to share my glory. I'm a competitive dude. I want to win. I don't want to win as part of a team. Get out of here. Why would you play a game if you're not competing against everyone else?
Okay.
To get bragging rights.
Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Yeah, seriously. We used to believe something back in the day. That's why Jordan will always be better than LeBron. LeBron, I bet, grew up playing cooperative video games.
I am probably the LeBron of this podcast. Like, I can work with people. I want to survive and win. And winning might not mean that I'm winning against everyone else. I might be winning with everyone else.
I mean, I played Pandemic one time at a friend's house, and there were like 6 of us, and we're all playing. We're kind of learning as we're going. There's like one guy who knows how to play. He's kind of guiding us. And then, so you don't know what to expect, what to happen. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, we lost. And I'm just like, well, thanks, Karen. This was probably your fault. I mean, I got mad. Just like, that's it? We lost? This game's stupid. Nobody wins?
Nobody wins.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Why play a game? Somebody's got to win. And that somebody should be me.
Well, you're not wrong.
This is the episode. What is this? Episode 25. This is the episode where Dave's ugliness finally came out. The board game episode. My competitiveness. I'm actually, in all seriousness, I'm not quite as competitive as I used to be. I don't play games as much though either. Like I think that was part of the draw for me. But I'll play games with my kids, and it's not a big deal. Like if I win or lose, but if I do lose, I'm mad.
You probably don't play.
I'll pout.
What do you meme?
Oh no, what's that? I've never heard of that.
Okay, so like my wife and I have the Office edition of it, and so you get a picture, and then everyone has cards that have different like quotes from the show. And like in the original game, it's like different pop culture sayings. Mm. And so you lay it down, it's kind of apples to apples. Yeah. And the judge then picks which one wins based off their opinion of what the picture on the card is. And so you have, in the Office edition, you have random scenes from The Office, and then you're like, well, this is funny, even though it didn't go with that scene. And you just hope that someone doesn't have the actual quote from the scene, and the people judging didn't watch The Office. So,
yeah, that doesn't sound fun. Then we're back to that apples to apples style.
And there's so many different ones.
And of course they got vulgar.
Yeah.
So like some people, like if you venture out of your circle of Christian friends, like you go to another friend's house, like, oh, we always play Cards Against Humanity. This house on Friday nights, you should come play. And then like you see the cards, you're like, I shouldn't be here. I'm in danger. Like,
I think that they made a Christian version.
yeah, it's right behind you. Go get it. Go get it. It's right there on the table. It's called Cards Christians Like.
Like, yes.
Yeah, you should get it. We should no one needs that demonstration.
Okay.
But there is a Christian version of Cards Against Humanity. It's called Cards Christian Like. And some of them are really funny. Like it's kind of, they kind of skewer, like it's the Babylon Bee of games, right? Where they kind of skewer Christian culture in a way.
Older version of Babylon Bee.
Yeah, before the Babylon Bee got super political.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I do.
Okay, is there anything else we need to talk about? Gaming? Board games? You guys, tell us what games you grew up with.
Yeah.
Comment on the Facebook page. Maybe we'll put up to go along with this, maybe I'll put up a little post that says, hey, what games did you grow up with? What were your favorites? And what games do your families play now? Maybe we can help each other out now that the game market is so overrun with games. I wouldn't even know where to start now.
If you say Battleship.
Come on, man. Nobody plays Battleship. Do they?
I hope not.
I hate that game.
It wasn't that much fun.
You'd always play it with someone like a cousin or a sibling, and they'd lie.
Yeah.
Miss. And then later on, you'd be like, wait, it has to be there. And you'd be like, okay, I quit. That's what you mean even lie. Yeah. The integrity's all on that person because you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And then inevitably someone would lie.
Cheaters going to cheat.
It's like an episode of House. Everybody lies.
Yeah.
So
it's not lupus.
That should be a game. It's not lupus. Well, everyone, thanks for listening, and we'll get a post up there so you can tell us what board games are your favorites, which ones you grew up with, and such. Thank you so much for listening. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. Don't just listen, but subscribe to the podcast. That helps us out, and then give us a review, but only if you're going to give us 5 stars.
All the stars.
We've got a perfect review score right now. So, give us a review and write some nice words. That helps us too. Gets more people to listen. We love every one of you guys that listen and appreciate you all that interact with us on the Facebook page and Twitter. Make sure and go to Facebook if you're on there. Follow us. Pop Culture Pastor Podcast. You got to add the podcast. Otherwise, you might get this other Facebook page about this really progressive pastor. He also is a geek, but he always writes these politically charged geeks columns. So yeah, if you see one like that, that's not us.
No.
We're very apolitical.
Try to be.
Here at Pop Culture Pastor. Yeah. And then or follow us on Twitter. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you in the next Pop Culture Pastor.